Hello, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another Lioness Sound Bite. Let's dive in. In this Lioness Sound Bite, I am going to share with you, I'm pulling up my notes here because that's how important this is. And I'm seeing it happen so much in the consciousness and in the culture right now, which is, I'm actually really super grateful that people are aware of what's called their villain archetype. Now, if you're new to my world, there's a concept I teach called the Drama to Dharma Triad. The Drama Triad exists parts of you that feel like drama. They're the victim part, the villain part, and the hero part, the savior complex. And oftentimes when we have, and I'm going to specifically in this Lioness Soundbite, I'm going to talk about the villain archetype and how to put on your villain crown and own it and not run from it, not run from your inner demons and dragons, but actually learn how to slay them. And not even slay them and kill them, but befriend them. In your drama triad, there's, again, the villain, the victim, and the hero, or the victor, or the savior, whatever you want to call it. And then in the dharma triad, we have the parts of us that can observe life from a lens of gratitude and not get caught in the polarities and the drama of life. And I call those parts of you the friend, the sage, and the coach. And I guide people through this exercise in my Vortex live experiences, my immersions, my facilitators in training. I teach them in that methodology. And also drip it into my Project Lioness cohort. So if you want to go deeper, definitely check out those programs. Today I'm going to talk about the villain archetype. So the villain archetype is just exactly what it sounds. It's the part of you that feels like a villain, that feels like a bad guy or a bad girl. I know right now in the social media world, like everyone's a baddie and it's like owning your inner baddie, when in reality what they're teaching is just like boundaries, which I think is funny. Like we now call them baddies when it's just owning your boundaries. But your villain is the part of you that has been compensated for the hero. So for those of us, we grew up being the hero in our life and we were there to save people and rescue people and like make sure everyone's okay. Usually that hyperfixation on being a savior and a hero is a compensation for the part of you that is afraid to just own being the bad guy, the bad girl, or the villain. And your villain is what I have found extremely important to own if you want to serve at any national or global scale. Because here's the thing, you're going to expand. You're going to expand your services, expand your business, and not everyone's going to like you. And what happens is when you don't own your inner villain, what happens is you become a hero to everyone and you fail to save yourself. This is what can look like fawning, people-pleasing, appeasing. You become a martyr where you're trying to appease everyone around you and you fail to have any level of self-fulfillment because you're too busy siphoning your energy to everyone around you. So the first thing I tell entrepreneurs is like, look, you're not for everyone and you shouldn't be for everyone because serving 10 billion people, unless you're Amazon, which Jeff Bezos is a villain to a lot of people, can be a lot, right? I mean, imagine how many villains that he has created of himself, Jeff Bezos, just as an example, in scaling a company. Now, has he done it with integrity? I don't really know. I'm not here to get into that. But if you're a healer, a leader, a founder, or an entrepreneur, then as you impact more people, simultaneously, you're also going to like piss some people off. If you're truly being who you are, if you're truly being and living in alignment with your values, there are going to be people on the planet who have different values than you. And they're not going to agree with the way that you do everything. You literally have one life, okay? You have one life. So you might as well spend time being you and stop trying to chase and please everyone because that gets exhausting and that leads to a lot of health issues and a lot of mental health issues. So I digress. Let's go back to the villain. So we're going to focus on in this Lioness Soundbite, owning your villain crown. And I get that from Kelly Brogan. I love her. Shout out to Kelly Brogan. If and when she listens to this, I'm going to manifest that and be a guest on her show. I love the way that she talks about this triad, which comes from Cartman's psychology. For me, I have since named it the Drama Triad because I like the sound of drama to dharma. She talks about how your inner villain is, again, the bad girl part of you, the bad guy, right? The bad person, the part of you that allows things to be as they are and not try to save everyone. You know, Mel Robbins has talked about this in her book, Let Them. So letting people have their experience of being disappointed, of being and having perceptions and judgments around you. This is the part of you that can receive when it's in its embodied form, it can receive 1-star reviews, and you don't take it personally because you realize with every 1-star review, there's 5-star reviews balancing you out. And you're not meant to please everyone, right? You're here to be and express your soul purpose, and not all the other souls on the planet are going to necessarily agree with you. So your villain, the villain archetype, is when it's in its embodied form, can handle being in that state, being wrong, being the bad person. And the villain archetype, when it's in its embodied form, which I'm going to give you a couple things that you can focus on, really does well with shame. It doesn't let shame like eat itself away, and it can handle some of these kind of more dense emotions of guilt and shame and betrayal. That's really where the villain archetype hangs, is the ability to feel the shame without making it mean anything about their life. And there's a practice, what I call a self-containment exercise, where you strengthen your spine, you soften your belly, and you allow yourself to fully feel into this archetype, which might mean feeling and alchemizing the shame in your body. It might feel, which by the way, shame is self-judgment. Guilt is judgment of others, or judgment of yourself, perceiving that you did something that was hurting someone else. That's guilt. Shame is judgment of self. Guilt is judgment of self for doing something to someone else that you think caused more pain than pleasure. I talk about that in a lot of my podcasts and programs. So with the villain archetype, then when they're embodied, they can handle, beneath the emotion is always a sensation. It's all sensation. And you either learn how to be with those energies, or you collapse and get sucked in to the downward spiral. And some may call that trauma. Okay. So as a villain, when you're owning your villain crown, Kelly Brogan talks about putting on your crown and giving yourself a self-containing moment where you just allow yourself to feel being the villain. I'll give you an example of this. So when I first received a 1-star review, which was left at like 1:30 a.m. for my chiropractic office, and I hope giving examples helps y'all, because like I'm a real human. I go through this and I just learn from the density. I turn the density into my destiny. I turn the drama into my dharma, and I'm an alchemist in that. Like I'm not afraid to feel shame. I'm not afraid to feel my villain, because I know deep down, like my soul has a purpose and I'm here to serve humanity. And some people are going to like that and some people aren't. And that's okay. Before I go into this example, I should mention part of owning your villain crown is not like intentionally and trying to hurt people out of ill intent. It's just you being yourself and speaking truth, or whatever that means to you. And like some people agree and some people are going to disagree. I'm not going around and like punching people in the face, right? Like I'm not going around, but there are subconscious parts of me that, and you, and that's part of owning your villain crown. There are parts of you that kind of get off on being the villain a little bit. And for some of you that may be more conscious, like you like to see, you get off on like seeing someone maybe suffer a little bit because you're like, I'm the evil villain, right? And I think it's important to be aware of that. Like there is a part of you deep down that probably gets off on some people struggling. And just be real with yourself in that. It may not be the conscious thought pattern. It may not be the conscious belief that you have all the time, but deep down, if we look at parts work, there's a part of you that kind of, I'm going to say it, you kind of like it a little bit. You kind of like being the villain. And so in this self-containment practice, what you allow yourself to do is strengthen your spine, soften your belly, and allow yourself to metabolize and mobilize that energy and density. And beautifully, paradoxically, what happens is when you can allow yourself to feel all these villainy parts of you, you can actually access more of your light energy. Believe it or not, because as you go through the black hole, on the other side of a black hole is a light hole. It's all physics, right? We're applying physics to physiology. So an example of how this has shown up for me and how I see it show up in my clients and my programs is I got my first 1-star review and I looked at, and it was like 3 in a row. So 3 came in at 1:30 a.m. and I was like, is this a robot? Is this a real person? It's kind of weird to leave a review at 1:30 a.m., but some people are awake at that time. Vampires are awake at that time. And I was like, so livid. And for me, I default into being a bigger villain than the first villain. So, this is an old pattern of mine. And I would say I've gotten better at disarmoring myself and just allowing myself to have an experience of like, oh, that sucks. And just feeling all that shame and alchemizing it into truth, which I teach in my programs how to do that, how to alchemize these emotions. When that happened, I was so defensive. So my inner villain, I was villainy to them. And then my inner hero came online to compensate, to say, I need to make this right. I need to respond to these reviews. I need to come at them and I'll show you, just this total fight response, which is a trauma response. It's a drama response. And then I started learning this work and I said, wait a second. And I'm going to give this to you as an example to see this in your own life. There was a part of me in that moment that, and we all have these different parts that are resonating inside of us that attract experiences outside of us to get us to wake up, to learn to love ourselves. And so I looked at this experience, many years into the future, and I looked back and I said, oh my gosh, there was a part of me that was kind of getting off on being a villain back, because I hadn't learned how to embrace and honor and integrate my own villain. So I was getting something like a secret payoff from these negative reviews. I got to defend myself. I got to have this hit of adrenaline. I got to, put on my high horse and just be like, who are you? And I went into my pride around it. And so those are a couple examples of this secret payoff that we get from playing in these dynamics and these triads of our life. So there's a part of us that gets something from being a victim or a villain. So you could say in that case, those reviews, they were the villain. I was perceived as the victim. And instead of allowing myself to just feel like a victim and metabolize that energy, my inner villain and hero came online. So usually, again, what happens is when we don't feel like we can just honor our victim energy and victim consciousness, but that's not who you are. It's just a part of you, right? There's a little part of you that feels like a victim. And instead of letting her just feel that energy and feel sad, I wasn't as veteran in the energy of sadness. I went into courage and then I went into anger and defense. And that's not going to serve me either, right? So I'm just giving you an example of how this can play out in your interpersonal relationships where you're co-creating this more than you think. And so when I look at this, and this is an exercise for you, when I look at these moments where there's a villain involved and I'm being a villain, I can say, okay, what am I getting out of this? What's the secret payoff here? And how can I transcend it? Because when you can start to see the things that you're getting from things that you have shame around and see oh, I could see there's another side to this, it actually allows you to transcend the experience and learn to love yourself from a place of wholeness. And when you can do that, you actually start to dissolve and alchemize the behavior in the first place. And if you are a founder or an entrepreneur, the beautiful thing that happens is you don't fear being yourself. You realize that part of the game of life and business includes both compliments and criticism. It includes 5-star reviews and 1-star reviews. It includes clients who are absolutely in love with what you do, and then people who really hate what you do. And when you can dance in either one of those dynamics and see that both sides serve a purpose, you can be more in the state of equanimity and balance. And when you can honor all these inner parts of you, you actually don't create the inner or the outer villain as much, believe it or not. That's the beautiful thing about this work, is when you can alchemize and integrate all of these parts and own it, then you don't need to create the outer world, the outer drama and chaos to wake you up to it. So awareness and consciousness is your superpower. When you can become aware of all these different dynamics and parts of yourself and tame your inner shame, tame your inner villain and demon, you don't create the outer drama because you've chosen to face the inner drama. And I say in my work, you got to choose your challenges. Challenges are part of life. I think we've created a world, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to say it, we've created a world, fortunately and unfortunately, where people are seeking a shortcut and they're seeking a route of comfort and things being really easy. And it's not that things can't be fulfilling. It's just that's not reality. You're going to have easy and hard. You're going to have challenge and support. You're going to have villains and victims and heroes. You're going to have all these different sides of life because polarity is the conversation and the frequency of the universe. And you can't live without it. Otherwise, if you do, the whole quantum reality and physical structure of the universe breaks down. So this is literally a law of physics. And if you're like, what? How do I learn these laws of physics and principles and apply it to my life? Then you're definitely going to want to join my program, my friend. So I digress. I want to give you a mantra. When you're owning your villain crown and you're allowing yourself to have a self-containing moment, a beautiful mantra when you're working through this is, let me pull it up here. So the villain mantra, and your victim has a mantra, your hero has a mantra, your villain has a mantra. I'm going to talk about the villain. If you want to go deeper into this, definitely join Project Lioness. I go super deep into how to alchemize these parts of you. But the inner villain, the mantra is, I don't need to be bad or wrong to choose what's best for me. So when you can honor your values, know that people who have similar values are going to gravitate to you. And they're going to support you because you match. And then there's going to be people on the planet who have completely opposite values. Thank God. Can you imagine if we were all the same person? Life would be so boring. What I find really interesting about human beings is like we all have different values. And our values drive our behavior. So then as you own your values and own all parts of you, there's going to be someone who has completely opposite values. And they may not agree with how you do life. And so to them, you may challenge their values and vice versa. That's part of life. Challenge is part of life. So again, your mantra is, I don't need to be bad or wrong to choose what's best for me. So when you choose what's best for you, you can trust that that ripples into everyone else around you and gives them permission to choose what's best for them, even if it's exactly opposite. Now in this Lioness Sound Bite, as I wrap this up, I'm not going to get into the concept of morality because that's a whole deep dive that I could do an entire weekend on. But I want you to start to look at, one, where are you making people wrong for choosing themselves? Where are you demonizing other people for living in alignment with their values? Where are you demonizing and villainizing yourself? And ultimately, how can you allow some of that guilt and shame to start to mobilize and honor your inner villain and honor the part of you that really just wants to live fully expressed as you are and dissolve that shame? Okay? So let me know what you got out of this. Drop it in the comments below. Check out our programs and where I teach you how to really master this in your life and let that ripple into every domain of how you show up. Thanks for tuning in, my friends. I'll see you at the next perfect time. Cheers.